So former UFC middleweight title holder Robert Whittaker against Kelvin Gastelum is a fight which I think a lot of people have obviously wanted to see for a long time. In this one, I think the key will be Robert Whittaker's pace on the feet. I just think he'll have a strong enough takedown defense and maybe strong enough wrestling of his own to nullify that attack from Kelvin Gastelum, and I think he will eat the power of Gastelum on the feet before tiring him out. I think this will be a decision win for Robert Whittaker, but I wouldn't be surprised either at a late stoppage for the man from down under.
I really like Robert Whittaker in this fight. To me, those last two performances over Jared Cannonier and Darren Till showed that he is still a top middleweight in the division. And Kelvin Gastelum got a nice win in his last fight over Ian Heinisch. But the two fights before that, he lost to Till and he had a quick submission loss to Jack Hermanson. I don't know what type of Kelvin Gastelum we're going to get, but I know what type of Robert Whittaker we're going to get. Outside of the one loss to Adesanya, where he lost his middleweight title, he's looked pretty great, and I think he gets it done here. I don't think he finishes Kelvin Gastelum, but I think he goes out there and gets a pretty dominant decision, and hopefully gets a title shot next against Israel Adesanya.
This is a great matchup. It's a shame that we didn't get Whittaker, Paulo Costa, of course. I think this is what everyone wanted to see. But I, in some ways, this is almost maybe even a tougher matchup for Whittaker as far stylistically, because the pace that Gastelum puts on anyone, it always gives him a chance. So I still like Whittaker's chances. I would have liked him to knock out Costa, actually, but I'm still going to go with a Whittaker win in this case by decision. I think he's just clearly the number 2 best middleweight in the world until proven otherwise.
Robert Whittaker versus Kelvin Gastelum. Oh man, I'm just really happy that this fight is happening in the first place. You know, I was really looking forward to it the first time that it was made, and then we lost it because Robert Whittaker almost died because of the collapsed bowel issue that he had, and thankfully pulled through, and here he is looking great on this new run. Kelvin Gastelum since then has went on a rough stretch, 3-fight losing streak, and then just rebounded against Ian Heinisch. But I think it was kind of a matter of rough matchups that didn't particularly play into his style. And, at the same time, though, I do think he has declined just a tiny bit, whereas Robert Whittaker arguably has gotten sharper since losing the title to Adesanya, and maybe he's not finishing everybody left and right and looking as impressive to the casual eye, seeing all these knockouts like he was on his run to the title. But he's looking, very sharper and refined, maybe a little bit more patient with his approach in these recent fights. And I think that's going to come into a big effect here in a fight with Gastelum, where I think they match up very well, and we'll see a much more competitive fight than people might have assumed, despite what has happened recently for both of their careers. But in the end, I think that Whittaker is going to be able to get it done, find a finish late in maybe the 4th round TKO, as Kelvin maybe gets carried away running in. But it should be a very fun fight, and I am looking.
Yeah, another fight booked on kind of short notice after there was Paulo Costa pull out with the illness. So now we got a rematch of a fight was supposed to happen 2 years ago, I believe, for the title at that point. And, my thoughts remain the same kind of as I thought back then, Shaq. I still feel like Rob Whittaker's the better MMA fighter all around. He is the favorite right now. I do think he probably wins a decision, I'm guessing, in this fight. But Gastelum looked phenomenal his last time out against Ian Heinisch. He could make a competitive fight. I would pick Whittaker by decision, though.
Ooh, Robert Whittaker versus Kelvin Gastelum. Okay, I think this is pretty easy for me. I mean, Bobby Knuckles, after he had the lengthy hiatus, I don't know if you remember, he came out and he said that he was suffering from burnout. He's looked phenomenal. Like, I mean, against Jared Cannonier, he put in a stellar performance, and also against Darren Till. So I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with Robert to beat Kelvin. I mean, Kelvin's been a bit hot and cold ever since the Adesanya fight. He had the weird fight with not so much of a weird fight with Darren Till. Just Darren Till outpointed him. That was at UFC 244. That's where we actually first met. I remember. Yeah, that was where we first met. But he's been a bit hot and cold. Then obviously he had the early submission loss to who was it, Jack Hermanson, and then who else has he fought in the interim? Ian Heinisch. Yeah, okay, yeah, it was a good performance against Ian Heinisch, but I think Whittaker is going to he's going to be light on his feet, in and out too quickly for him with his blitzes, and I see Robert getting his hand raised.
Robert Whittaker versus Kelvin Gastelum, the fight we wanted to see years ago for the UFC middleweight title, but unfortunately, Robert Whittaker pulled out the day of due to a medical emergency. Kelvin was walking around with one of Henry Cejudo's titles, and we ultimately got Izzy versus Anderson Silva in the main event. Here we are, Kelvin Gastelum filling in on short notice for Paulo Costa. But for me, this is not the same fight it would have been years ago. Robert Whittaker, despite the loss to Israel Adesanya, has looked really, really good against Darren Till and against Jared Cannonier. I think it is without a doubt that he is right now the second best guy in the division. He deserves a rematch against Izzy, and I think the winner of this fight will get the next middleweight title shot regardless. I'm going to say that Whittaker edges it out, and not just edges it out, but wins pretty decisively.
Fight